Be listening. We're on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, SM1, FS1, excuse me, also Sirius XM Channel 83. It is absolutely a pleasure to have you in today. And again, thank you so much for stopping by. I know many of you are on the road. Please be careful. This is one of those weekends where people go out, they have fun, they get on the road. Be careful. Spend time with family. Joy Taylor, who has a Memorial Day look and feel today. Look at you. It's like you're going to go right from here to an amazing barbecue.
We are probably going to barbecue today, yes.
Yes.
You have a, what are the things called? Like
the eggs? So
no, not the egg, but yeah, it's like that. I don't know why I can't.
I grilled with my son all weekend. It was so much fun. I just love this time of the year.
You can grill?
Oh, I love grilling. I'd grill every day if I could. I'd grill. I used to grill in Connecticut until Thanksgiving. And then the grill was covered with snow. I grilled every day. Love it. All right, we do it every day. For those of you who have never watched our show, every Monday at this time, 11 o'clock Eastern. What time is it? 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern, whatever time that would be in Albuquerque. Colin right, Colin wrong. I tell you where I whiffed last week and where we were right last week. Here we go.
Where Colin was right?
I've said this all year long. There was a poll in the middle of the NBA season of the 3 guys you'd start your franchise with. It was all centers. And I said, I'm not starting my franchise with centers in 2019. Giannis, once again, superstar Giannis, superstar Kawhi, who got marginalized, the center. They don't control the tempo. They don't have the ball in their hands. I don't ever trust a big guy late at the free throw line. And they don't shoot threes, and we've moved analytically into a 3-ball league. And by the way, Giannis only shot 37% in this series when Kawhi guarded him. I just think basketball today, I want to build around guys who can put the ball on the deck and guys who can shoot. And even if you can't shoot like Ben Simmons, you can get the ball to shooters. I don't believe centers are who I would build around.
Where Colin was wrong.
The baby dinosaurs, I was a doubter all year. I kept saying, okay, who's your second scorer? Who's your third? How are you going to get to the finals? You don't have it. But I will say this. The Celtics were dysfunctional. The Sixers are immature. The Bucks are too young. And they are a well-coached, resilient group of adults. And it's not like they didn't have a little stress in this series. All their series, they'd lose a road game, but maturity matters. They also made a very nice move at the deadline to get Marc Gasol, maybe gave up a tad of their depth to get him. And in the end, I was wrong.
Where Colin was right?
Chris Middleton. I kept saying, Milwaukee, listen, I like him. He's a great story. I mean, the kid has really battled. But if he's your second best player, that doesn't feel like a finals team to me. It certainly doesn't feel like a championship team. Well, this series, he got exposed. He scored 11, 12, 9, 36, 14. That's not dependable. He only scored 15 or more once in this series. And I've said this for years in the NBA. It's not just about your star. If it's just about your star, Michael Jordan would have won every year he played, and Magic Johnson would have won every year. This league's about who's your number 2. Klay Thompson, I mean, when KD's healthy, Steph is your number 2. Magic, Kareem was your number 2. So the reality is with Chris Middleton, he may develop into a reliable 2, but right now on a championship team, he's probably a 3, and that's why Milwaukee is watching the finals.
Where Colin was wrong.
Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I always thought he was really talented, but he's got an odd personality. He doesn't really pass. He doesn't communicate a ton. He just never felt like a guy. He's kind of an enigma. He's a mystery. He couldn't even get along in San Antonio. I'm like, everybody works in San Antonio. It's like everybody works for the Patriots, right? And I always just saw him as kind of an odd, enigmatic, super talented guy. Well, he was great in the fourth. I said this. If you gave him Kobe's personality physically, he's the closest thing I've seen to Michael Jordan. Hands, dexterity, both ends. Great in the fourth quarter, trustable at the free throw line. There is no disputing now. He is a top, I mean, seriously, he's a top 3, maybe a top 2 player in the NBA.
Where Colin was right?
Never liked these 10-year contracts in baseball, especially when it's these Seattle, Minnesota, Cincinnati, the medium-sized markets. Sprinkle the money around. Give it to 4 and 5 different guys. Well, Robinson Cano didn't work with Seattle. The Reds are awful. Joey Votto with that huge contract, and Minnesota's fascinating. So this is the first year they haven't been locked in Minnesota to Joe Mauer's contract. And what were they the previous 7 years? Irrelevant. Have you noticed them this year? Best record in baseball, 10-game lead in the American League Central. I understand the Yankees paying huge money because the commerce and revenue they have, it doesn't matter for the Dodgers. It doesn't matter for, the big revenue teams. But when you're a Seattle, you're a Minnesota, you're a Padres. By the way, the Angels, they're not a huge revenue team. The Angels are out of it with Mike Trout. The Reds are out of it with Votto. The Twins move off Joe Mauer, sprinkle the money around, and they solve all those little issues they had. Never, ever, ever, like 10-year contracts. I guess I would swallow it if you're the Yankees or Red Sox, maybe massive revenue, but I think they're bad for teams long term.
Where Colin was wrong.
Oh, I thought the Steelers drama was all over. Well, hold on, we got a little bit of it. Joey Porter came out this weekend on the NFL Network and said Ben Roethlisberger has power, and he used it all for himself. I thought the drama was over. It was for 3 days. He said, listen, Terrell Davis on the NFL Network said, listen, John Elway used to go to management. He had power and give veterans time off because he thought they were getting beat up in practice. Ben Roethlisberger has the kind of power in Pittsburgh to get practices off for other guys, and he doesn't. Ben's into Ben. Here's what I'll say about Roethlisberger. He's polarizing. You can find 7 guys to line up behind him and 7 guys to criticize him. I don't like polarizing quarterbacks. As much as I like Ben, I'm not a fan of polarizing quarterbacks. I like my Bore 4. I like my Russell Wilson. I like my Andrew Luck. I like my Jared Goff. I like my Tom Brady. I like boring. Ben needs to get more boring because he's in the news way too much.
Where Colin was right.
One of my mottos in sports, and kind of in life, but in sports, be aggressive. Sometimes be aggressive to a fault. If you want to be patient, get in retirement planning or chess. But in sports, be aggressive. Toronto's a great example of this. They were a #1 seed, had the NBA Coach of the Year and an All-Star in DeMar DeRozan, and they blew it all up. They fired their coach. Didn't have to. He won Coach of the Year. They got rid of their star for Kawhi, who's potentially a one-year rental, and they went at the trading deadline, very good team, and they went and got Marc Gasol to give up some of their depth. They went super aggressive, and it paid off. Dwayne Casey was Coach of the Year. They gave him the award and then ran him out the door. They didn't have to do that. I loved it. This is a prime example. Toronto was good enough to sell out every game. They get excellent ratings. They are loved in the city. And they said, no. We're going to get aggressive here. We're going to go for it. If you want to be patient, play chess or get into retirement planning. In sports, 3 words. Go for it. Toronto didn't, was rewarded.
Where Colin was wrong.
I apparently like Klay Thompson way more than everybody else. He didn't make the NBA first team. He didn't make the All-NBA second team. He didn't make the All-NBA third team. Let me get this straight. A-plus shooter, A-plus personality, A-plus low drama, A-plus defender, and he's a 4th-team guard. I just like him more than everybody else does. Now, he had a bad December, and he wasn't great in October, but who's watching the NBA in October and early December? I mean, outside of scouts, not many of us. I still consider Klay Thompson the one player in the NBA. There's one that fits on every team. There's not a single NBA executive who said, 2-guard Klay Thompson. Everybody would take. Everybody would not take Steph because they have a point guard. Steph wouldn't work in Houston with the guys they have. I don't think Durant would work with everybody. But Klay works with everybody. Quiet, shooter, defender, smart, not going to argue about minutes, and didn't make one of the first 3 All-NBA teams.
Where Colin was right.
Jay Glazer this weekend saying the Rams now have genuine concerns about Todd Gurley's knee. The story came out last year. They were just, they weren't going to use him as much to rest him, and I just never bought into it. I'm like, timeout. Todd Gurley, next to Ezekiel Elliott, is the best running back in the league. And all of a sudden, late October last year, he just wasn't getting the carries. And it's what I said on the Super Bowl, why I ticked, even though I thought the Rams had better players than New England. I'm like, I can't go into a Super Bowl and have no idea what's going on with Todd Gurley. Why is he on an exercise bicycle? Why did they get C.J. Anderson? I've always been, the Rams smartly downplayed this. But my feeling was by late October, something's going on here. For the record, there were many people in the NFL that questioned why the Rams gave him that contract a year early. Rams may, according to this now, may regret it. Colin right, Colin wrong on a Monday. Folks, I'm not even halfway through all my material today. We got all sorts of stuff. Plus, Doug Gottlieb's around the corner on this beautiful Memorial Day. In L.A., it's The Herd.